Recording is on.
Hi, so we're here in a special Bitcoin Core app design call, not our regular weekly one, but a special one where the goal is simply to review what's here in my background, all these screenshots of the Qt GUI, because one of our missions and tasks will be to create a new design that implements, I guess, all of it or whatever is deemed by the larger group as necessary. And so the first step to that is understanding what's actually in here. And something I saw in that roadmap link that Bosch shared, at the bottom there were also things like, oh, these all things should also go into the GUI. So I think we'll have a list of stuff here, and then we might find other things that we also need to maybe just consider for the future. So let's say some new features come in that we don't have to re-architect everything or just cram things in weird ways. So it's kind of good to be forward-looking. But I guess now we just all jump in here. Thanks for joining, and we'll just jump in here and try to understand this application in the best way possible. Have you? I assume everyone here has used it, right? Downloaded it, ran it.
Yeah, a
couple times.
Just a little bit.
So one thing that I found actually nice about it, and I think that's a pretty awesome feature, is that it just works. Double click it, it connects, it doesn't bother you, it creates a wallet, you're pretty much ready to go. It's in that respect, it's actually pretty straightforward. The downside is that it instantly confronts you with this thing, thing that looks like something's broken.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because like, if you use this for the first time, you have no idea what's actually happening. So that was one of the. So I think this is something that we talked about in the redesigning the onboarding experience quite a bit. But I think otherwise, otherwise I would just go screen by screen and just talk about them. Or how would you like
awesome.
to do about this?
Yeah, we could do that. But also, if you could kind of zoom out really quickly so I could say something on that. When going through this, I think we want to identify just sort of the big ideas. And so the big ideas are that you send, you receive, you can create new addresses and all this. You can create new wallets. And so it's like the big ideas and then making them work well. And so we're going to go through this and we're going to find a ton of things wrong. But it's just fixing that within like the big idea feature. And so we'll keep most of these big idea features in the new GUI.
Yep.
And we can use all these note thingies here to just tag notes on everything that we find. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because the notes are just a bit gigantic. So sorry, or can I make the notes smaller? Does that work? Oh, that works. Okay, I'm just going to make notes smaller. Okay, so my prediction right now for this will be that basic send and receive, at the very core, these features are pretty straightforward. But once you add all these different ways of building wallets with multi-sig and batch send and all of this stuff, it will get really messy. And my prediction is that that's where we'll find all the complexity. But so let's go through it real quick. So this is when you start the application, this is where you end up. I believe it creates a wallet automatically for you. It automatically starts connecting to the network, and it shows you this state here, which looks really scary. And then you have to wait 10 hours. Here, I guess 26 hours. And only then can you really do something, right? That's one
So
of the weird
if
things
I could hop in there really quickly, and this is important for thinking about the design, is that actually we don't create an automatic wallet anymore. So you start off in a state where you do not have a wallet. Yeah. You have to manually create it.
Okay. First step. Does the used to be automatic? Does while you create the wallet, does the syncing already happen in the background?
Yeah, of course. So it just I can send a screenshot. I'll send it in Slack. But what happens is this window you see here, if you were to click hide, it's just gray, and in the middle it has a button where you can create a new wallet, and then at the bottom
Okay.
it still has the syncing bar, and it's doing all the full node stuff.
Okay. But that's excellent. Wasn't even aware of that. I've just been using it with existing wallets for too long.
Yeah.
And this is something that we really should take a look at. And we have screenshots of this?
Of the screen where it starts off without a wallet, no, but I can send one really soon.
Okay, let me try to find something because I remember. Hey, you can keep talking. I'm just trying to look for something.
Question for you guys. What do you think is the most essential information on the screen?
Progress.
Your balance.
Yeah.
Well, for the wallet, how much Bitcoin you have, right? I think if you're using it as a wallet, that's what you care about. If you're not using a wallet, then we care about the information that we'll have on the block clock. So the block time, the amount of connections you have to peers, and then the syncing is nice because like how long a block was at the current tip for. But when we're running in wallet mode, I guess the most important thing will be what is my current balance, right? And then maybe some transactions, like maybe recent transactions.
Okay, so you're referring to actually the home screen then?
Yeah, in the home screen, it does have the most important information, but I don't think that it's presented in the best way, because when you look at the current overview page, it's kind of like, oh, the feeling I always get is, why is it like this? Like, why do we have this, and then how do we better? And I always come to a dead end where the idea is, well, honestly, we could just remove the overview page as it is, and sort of get into a screen where maybe on the periphery, like on the top or the side, you have this important information, and then you have a function in the middle, which could be like send or receive. So you can do that action, but this important information is still presented somewhere instead of the way it is on the overview page.
So where's the overview page?
So Christoph is doing something on his screen, but it would be the first screenshot on the top left of the screens that I sent before.
Yeah.
Oh, is this?
This one. Yeah, and so something to understand here is to available, pending, and imager, which pending is something that's in transit right now that you can't really rely on to use for anything. You have to wait a little bit, I guess. And what does imager mean again?
Well, that's gonna come up when you're doing so. For example, here in the screenshot, I don't have 9,000 Bitcoin. But it was mined right through RegTest, and so you have to wait, I think, 101 confirmations as a miner, at least in the Bitcoin Core software, before that's deemed mature and spendable. So that's when it comes up. But when you're receiving Bitcoin, normally that's not going to come up. At least within the software, that's going to come up when you're mining. So 99.99% of people will never see the immature.
Yeah, this is definitely confusing for any non-miner users.
Yeah.
For sure, I do not understand what immature means.
Like when a miner mines a block, I think these Bitcoins are not available immediately. They are available for him to spend after some time, after X block spent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a thing we also have to resolve. So I just posted something in this, and I'll share a link in the chat also. So I remember Bosch, and this is a open issue from August 2020, Bosch was looking at simplifying the wallet creation flow. So this is what it looked at the time. So you could create wallet, and then you have the options. You can put in a name, you can say encrypt wallet, disable private keys, and make blank wallet. And those options were incredibly confusing, and there was a long discussion in the issue to sort through that. So this is a flow that I think we have to be pretty considerate about, and there is some material that we can use already, some history. And long-term, this might also involve multi-sig and hardware devices, hardware signers. So this will be a complex thing to figure out, but a very important thing.
Yeah, but I think so that second part, I guess, could be after, because right now would just be designed for like the current use case we have, which would be really single key wallets that we generate here, and but also external signer wallets. We have that now, and so the design that we do would incorporate those two.
I'm just going to put
So,
put a
sorry,
note in
what
here
were
real
you
quick.
saying, Gerald? What were you saying about the overview page, about it being as a pop-up or something like that? You had a suggestion?
Oh, what I was saying is the overview page does have important information on it, which is the recent transactions and the balance. But it's just when you look at it, you're kind of like, well, what, why? Like, why this? Why does it look like that? Why is this weird proportions of one takes up the whole screen, one doesn't? And it's just if you were going to design it, you'd keep this important information somewhere, but it could be on the periphery, like at the top somewhere, or on the left in some type of menu bar, or however it is. I think Christoph has a good design for it somewhere I saw.
Like this one where it's just in the top left.
Yeah, so in the top left you have your balance, and then you in the middle you have functions that you can complete. So send, receive, and then activity, I guess, will have the transactions, and so we keep all the important information there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think we need this screen here. It's such a repetition of.
Yeah.
So the idea is maybe to just not have the screen.
Yeah, if we can put the balance at the top, then what remains is a list of transactions. And then we can just use the transaction screen itself.
So if we were to get rid of this, put these, what sort of data do you think would show on that new screen, on that little available balance?
And pending, maybe without total.
Pending. And then the recent transactions as well, or?
Oh, are you saying within Christoph's design at the top left, like what balance would show? It would be only what is available.
Only what is available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could a small thing here real quick. You could do something like plus 0.0.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. That is great. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of huge. I don't know. There's a way to make this work, or it could be just a little plus, or it could be something to indicate, and then you click it, and then you see what's happening. But we kind of have to think about what each of these values mean. If at 99% of the time pending an imager is 0, then we don't have to show it at all times, because we can just show it when it's actually relevant. Otherwise, it's kind of a
Yeah.
waste of space. So
Yeah.
we can think about each one, how likely we can ask around, how often do you see this? Do you rely on this number? How important is this for you to see it at all times? And then we can just find a good place for it.
Christoph, where were you thinking of showing the transaction history then in the GUI?
Activity.
Activity. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
in the design guide, there's a page called activity. And the reason why it's called activity is because applications, a lot of times they have other events happen. Could be that, like on Zebedee, you played some game, or I don't know, on Breeze, you maybe subscribe to a podcast, or I don't know. The activity is more general purpose, or like you updated your privacy settings. It's more, it's kind of like all these social media places just
It's like a catch-all
lists of
kind of.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
just stuff that happened that you want to track for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And here, the thing here is that recent transaction, it's a little bit more difficult because recent transaction only shows you what's on the blockchain, if I remember correctly. Or does it get enriched with local data like labels and other things?
Yeah, so it would have labels. So if you see in the screenshot, it says edit K.
Yeah.
I added the address for that to display that label instead of the address.
Yeah, so it is like it takes the blockchain data, which is very minimal, and then it enriches it with user data that only lives in this application.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Does it show like signing messages? Like the thing which Craig Wright cannot do. Like, does it also type of info?
Well, I include that in the screenshots now? Yeah, you can sign a message, and there's a menu utility to do that. Yeah, I did put it in the screenshots, but in terms of transactions, no, it doesn't show that because it's not a transaction.
Yeah. So it's something we can figure out. Maybe we keep the transactions. Maybe there are other important things that the application actually tracks that we want to put in there. It's something to consider. I had another question here. So here it says, this is pre-release test build, use at your own risk. What other type of messages are shown here?
Oh, so depending on like what change you did, you could have like service bits, like something like new service bits activated. There's really two messages that will show up. This is one of them, and there's one more. And I can also send a screenshot of that after this. But
Okay,
there's
cool.
just
And do they look the same, or is there different styling? Like one that's
yeah, they look
like, you need to do something scary. The other one is more for your information.
yeah, they look exactly the same, like the same
Okay.
length, color in the background, and the text.
Okay, cool.
So
And
this
that just has to do because I compiled it instead of like doing a depends build or the geeks build, like the official release way to do it. And so that shows up when you do it on your own. And when you're doing it on a branch, that's not a release branch. So like on master.
Okay.
Okay.
Something else that will be a point of discussion is this little corner here. So what somebody who doesn't know what these means, anybody want to guess?
No. Well, that looks like network. The second to last looks like network because it looks like a network icon, and the last looks like a tick, but I wouldn't know what that tick means. And I'm also confused why BTC is there. And also HD to me means high definition.
Okay, so I can go through them from left to right. So BTC because we can switch between different coins, so like Ethereum and Solana, and so you can choose. No, that's the unit. So you can. I think you could click on it, but you can click on it and change the unit so to sat. SAT being the other one I know. I don't know about the other ones. I forgot the other units, but you can
Delete,
switch it and it
CM.
shows you the current unit you're using within the GUI. HD, yeah, it means high definition, but it's very important within Bitcoin because it's the HD wallet, so hierarchical deterministic wallet, and so that's a very important thing because those are the main wallets that are used, right? It's a really good innovation with how we do wallets, and it's just signaling to the user that the current wallet that they have loaded is an HD wallet. And
Okay.
it can show other states, as in, I think if I had made one that's encrypted, it shows a slightly different symbol. I think it also shows a lock symbol. And then you have the next one that is network. It's just telling you um, the peers you're connected to, and also it would show how many peers you're connected to. So, for example, here in RegTest, and in that screenshot, I'm not connected to any peers. So the only thing that's like filled in is the dot in the middle. But if I were connected to the peers that I wanted to, um, yeah, that's HD in the chat. If I was connected to the peers that I wanted to, then all of the dots would be filled in. And then on the right, it just means that I've synced up to the chain, and it's like a check mark. Just explaining what it is, saying that anything about it is great.
Do you
Yeah.
think we
So
show HD? Like, can we show this information like about or something like about this wallet or about this software?
Yeah. So like we didn't have, or it wasn't default HD wallets at one point. At one point, you just had wallets where it generated around 100 keys, and then we had wallets. And so within that time period, within that change, it would have been important to signal. I think now everybody's creating HD wallets, right? And so we don't necessarily need to show that because one, it's kind of what people expect. And so when we create wallets now within the GUI, they just are HD wallets. Actually, to generate a non HD wallet, you cannot do that within Bitcoin Core. There's no way to do that within Bitcoin Core now. You'd have to go back to a really old version of the software, generate a non HD wallet there, or through some other software that you find, and then try to load that within the GUI now. But now there's no way to create a non HD wallet. And so maybe that's something that we don't need to show.
yeah. So that's something we can figure out. So for that, we probably want to take an index of what type of wallets are supported. So if a wallet requires, if there's an external signer, maybe, if let's say we end up with something like this, and there's a little bit of kind of a symbol in the top left corner here next to my wallet. Maybe that symbol can look a little bit different based on what type of wallet I have. But something we can figure out. The question is just, this is kind of like a little bit of the junk drawer, and I think every application and every household and every person, every desk has one. It's just like stuff goes there that it cannot be categorized properly, or like
Definitely
you
feels that
just
way.
haven't you just haven't thought about like where it should go, so it goes in the junk drawer. But
So-
maybe we can reconsider it and put things in contextually.
What was
And
the-
maybe we'll end up with the junk drawer again. Who knows?
Sorry, what was the check mark again? That one I didn't understand. The check mark.
That just means that I've synced up to the chain. So I'm no longer in IBD, and I've synced up, and then so I've got into the tip of the most work chain.
Sync to the chain. Okay.
You have the latest block.
Ah, okay. Christoph said it in the right language.
Sorry.
No, no worries. That's your language, everyday language, right?
Yeah.
Are there any other states on the screen that we should be aware of? We talked
Yeah.
about, yeah.
So when I would be in IBD, when I'm still syncing with the chain, you would have two exclamation point buttons next to balances and recent transactions. So it would be two square buttons, and I'll have to take a screenshot of that. But it'll be two square buttons, and there'll be an exclamation point in the middle. And when you click it, remember the first screen that you showed when we started this call, then that shows up. So at the top left there,
Yeah, I just
where
grabbed a screenshot of it.
yeah. Oh yeah. So those buttons, and if you click it, then on the right there, that shows up.
Yeah.
And then one thing that's not in my screenshot but is in your screenshot again is when you have multiple wallets, you switch through them with that drop down box on the top right there.
So I have a question here. When, let's say I have 3 wallets, I always load this one. Let's say okay. Can we show a screen like this that shows all my wallets with the amount of Bitcoin in them being up to date? Or does only the one that's open get scanned? I think we talked about this before.
Well, with the way we have sort of the back end set up with the models and using those current models, there's no way to do that. That could be changed though. Like there could be a way to aggregate from those wallets, but that requires changes with the wallet itself. So the other aspects of the code, and then completely reinventing these models. And so it's something we can do. Yeah, we can do that. But right now we can't do that.
Okay.
But in terms of if that's the best UX, then yeah, we can do those changes and we can get that done.
Maybe spell requires. I'm blanking right now.
So would that mean like every time they click on the wallet that they're on, then like an entire new screen shows for that individual wallet? Or
I mean, this was basically just expanding that. This is from the early mockup, expanding that into that little drop down, having a screen for it. Because, eventually you might have 3 different wallets, and one of them might be your primary wallet that's local. For another one, it might be just signing, a signer for a multi-sig wallet for your long-term savings or something like that. And seeing an overview of them is a little bit, and maybe what properties they have, if they're very different types of wallets, might actually be kind of just a little bit easier than just a drop-down. Like a wallet management, landing page, dashboard, whatever.
So for this screen here, this is just showing the wallets that you have and quickly the balance within them, right? But you do have to operate under a specific wallet. So for example, like we can't operate in a mode where like all of the wallets are loaded and then you can do send from these multiple ones, right? So here is just kind of like a good overview of your wallets. But then you will still operate under one, right?
Correct. You pick one and then you go in.
Okay.
And then you're inside of that one.
So actually, we can do that now because we have a cache of the balance. It's just that it's and most likely impossible that cache won't be up to date. So the cache, when you had run the wallet, we do have a cache of what was the balance.
The last time you left it.
Yeah. So for example, like let's say it was last week that I opened savings and I've been using personal wallet every day. within that week, if I received the transaction, the savings, and I didn't open that within the GUI, that cache wouldn't have been updated. And so it'll be out of date.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, anything else around this home screen, or should we move to? We're already like 30 minutes in, and we covered one screen.
Yeah. I think that's a good breakdown of the overview. Let me see. Yeah, I think we can move on.
Okay. So send is logically the next one in the list, in the top nav. Obviously, at the beginning, you can't send anything unless the network is synced and you actually have created a wallet and you have deposited something. So send is never the first thing that you can ever do, really, when you first start using a wallet. And options we have here. So by default, it looks like this. And then once you expand the fee selection, it looks like this. And then you can also do coin control, which is choosing which of your UTXOs you actually want to use here. And then it gets just really, really busy. So this could be a candidate where instead of cramming it all into one screen, we work with modals or a sequence of screens or something. In terms of features, we have pay to, that's the address, and there are different address types, and I think they also get validated. We have label, which is just text, and I think that gets shared when you share an invoice here, that gets sent along. And then the amount, subtract fee from amount, and then at the bottom the transaction fee. And you can add recipient. And one question here is, do we have a screenshot of that?
Of the multiple recipients, no, but it would be creating this into another field, just because you can create more than one output.
Yeah, so it's basically, it's not adding a recipient to this. It's like when I send an email, right? Both people get the same email, but that's just not how transactions work, right? It doesn't get split between the two. It's like making two transactions at the same time, I think.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, technically it might be the same on the blockchain, but for a user, I am sending two amounts to two different people.
Yeah.
And then on the top right, we have the options to, what are these options here?
It's a address book, copy or paste, I believe. And then there's the X button would it would clear out those fields. So if you messed up and you don't want to you could just click that quickly to erase it so you can start over filling in the fields.
Is use available balance just like a max? You use all available?
Yeah. So use all available balance here. So it just fills in the max amount of Bitcoin you have.
Mm-hmm.
So which information on this send screen do you guys think is essential to keep? Which kind of, in terms of the pay to label amount, subtract fee amount?
So label is optional, right? We don't need to label transactions.
Well, you're not late, so you're doing it for yourself, but also if you are going to be, if you're generating an invoice, it'll be within Receive. But then when you load in the URI, so for example, in Receive, if I had made an invoice, I might have put a label. And now, if I am opening up that invoice that somebody gave to me that they generated, then the label will be built in to remind me again why I'm paying this. And so this label has kind of existed, and it's a standard within Bitcoin URIs. It's not something like really specific to core, but there's just a standard where when you generate URIs, it has certain things, and the label is one of them, or it can be. It doesn't have to be. And so I think in terms of moving to a new one, we would at least have these fields that you could fill in. But then things like subtract fee from amount and we'll really subtract fee from amount. We can find better places to have that. But then another thing I think we should still have is really quickly accessible is customizing your transaction fee because we know fee events can occur. And although we try to recommend a good fee, um, people should still have the ability to quickly customize it and increase it in case it's very important for them to have it within the next block. And so we do try to have a good estimate, but it could be off, right? And they might want to increase the fee.
So do you think pay to and the label and the amount should stay in terms of those entry fields?
I think it should stay because, especially if you're loading in a URI, then those fields are going to get filled in within the GUI, so that you know what you're sending to. But also to tie this in with the roadmap that I think what's his name, Robert Spigler, he had some features at the bottom that would be great to have. One of them is scanning a QR code. But when you're scanning a QR code, what you're really scanning would be a Bitcoin URI. And so again, these fields get filled in after you scanned it or after you've clicked on the URI or loaded it in. These are fields that get filled in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's put an example here. So this is basically typically what's contained, like something like that, the lightning part. So here, if you can see that, so that's the receive screen basically creates something like that, and then it gets put into a QR code, or you click it, and then this label here, this here is what, like, let's say you click it, Bitcoin Core opens, it goes to the send screen, and then this is what would be put in as the label, and then you send it, and then in your transaction screen, it should say like for lunch Tuesday or something like that, so you can remember what this payment was for.
Yeah.
That's how that all ties together. The thing that I find a little bit confusing is here in receive, we have one thing called label and one thing called message. And I just don't know what the difference is.
Where is Crystal?
Where is the message?
Here in the receive screen.
Let me just come to the receive screen. Let me just see where Christoph is. Here it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can
confusing with Christoph. This one here.
Yeah, one thing, there's label and there's message.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to use those?
I'm not really, I'm wondering if the word label is the right, yeah.
In traditional transactions, right? Let's say you pay something through PayPal or I at the store, like, hey, what's the label for this payment? Oh, it's like buying groceries, right? Nobody will say that. But what's the word that describes the purpose of the transaction? What are people familiar with? And then with message, I don't even know. I know in the URI there's also label and message, and I feel like one describes who it's to, like the name of the recipient maybe, and the other one is the reason for it, but I'm really just not sure. But it's something we can think about and try to, if there's a way to clarify it.
I feel like in traditional banking apps, they use reference, something like reference for message, where you would add, like, I don't know.
Yeah, reference is also a lot of times used for some type of payment ID in an internal system.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Yeah.
So
it would be like a payment ID, and then label could be, I don't know, name reference or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they're very generic, right? And people use it in different ways. So the question is, can we be more specific in this?
So just a quick update on that, just kind of break it down. So within receive, We have label and message. Let me get it open here. Yeah, label and message. So label is going to be metadata for us internally to label the address. So the address gets labeled with this whatever we put in there. So like if we put Bitcoin design um, fund or whatever, and then the message would be what the transaction is for. So like payment for the pizza, but label gets assigned to the address, and then I send a screenshot in Slack on what happens when we open up the URI. And so one thing that's again now reflected in the screenshots, which I have to provide a screenshot for, although I did in Slack if you guys open it. So the label it gets opened, but one thing that's new here that you'll see is message appears, and you'll see that it wasn't anywhere before. Like in send, you can't really put a message there. Send the message will open below amount, and it's I think it's a pretty bad UX. And I also like on the discussion of what it would be. I don't think that we should change the names of them because I think within Bitcoin client software, I would assume that you keep the same names because that's just kind of what the spec is. You have label, message. Uh, for example, like I don't think that we should change to anything like payment ID or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think that could be a bigger discussion, but
Yeah.
we'll just keep these names as they are.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of potential of how to place that in the UI and kind of explain visually or verbally to the user what can be used for. Because even for us, it's not clear, right? And if we want
For
that,
example, if it if you guys think it's a better UX where for the everyday user, for example, like I almost never really use label and message. I just want to send an amount of Bitcoin to an address. And so if it's a good UX where you have sort of the basic is address and amount.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, and then there might be a way for the user to expand upon what they want to fill out for the transaction. So in the form could start off as basic address and amount. And then maybe there could be like a little down arrow, and then more fields for the form will pop up. And then they could fill in the label and, whatever else, add a new recipient.
I mean, we just have to look at how it's used throughout the whole thing. For example, here in coin selection, you see a list of coins and it says received with label, right? Then it's helpful. And if it says here, this was, pizza purchase or was received from a bank or something, then that's helpful. That allows you to make a good decision. So we just have to figure out where it surfaces it and where it gets surfaced and whatnot. But should we move on from the labels because
Yeah, we have 10 minutes left. So just last question, Christoph, with this requested payment history on the receive screen, do you also see that going in the activities tab as well?
No, that's different. The requested payment is when I fill this out. Actually, I put in a request. Which one are you looking for now?
Oh, this one here. Let me just wait. Yeah.
So I would, here in this mockup here, I would just say, I create a new request, and then I have my old requests, and I mean, ideally, everything that you request fairly quickly turns into a transaction, right? So we can figure out whether we want to put unfulfilled requests in the transaction in the activity screen or not. Yeah, that's something to discuss. I guess that could be interesting. If yeah, I don't know how many people would create requests that they don't expect to get filled.
One thing you did do with requests is you generated a new receive address, and
Yeah.
so that could be interesting. But I feel like activity is things that were completed. So like you sent, but also you received this. And so if you haven't received to that address, I don't think it's very important to you. Also because we treat addresses as a ephemeral thing, right? So you generate as many new addresses as you need. If you generate an address and you never receive to it, is maybe it could be interesting depending on who you are. But I guess that is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, for me as a user, let's say I request a payment, I want to know when that comes in, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it is kind of important, even though it's not fulfilled. So yeah, it's something we can discuss, I guess, and that's something we can explore in mockups and whatnot too. But for send, the transaction fee kind of gets transaction fee. We've discussed a bunch of times in the guide. It can get very complicated. A very easy way to break it down is, I think what's in here already, confirmation time target. Like, how urgent is this to you? How quickly do you want this to be confirmed? Like, do you even care at all? Like, let's say you pay your rent and you pay it a week ahead, then you really don't care, right? It can take 5 days and it's still fine. But let's say somebody's urgently waiting for something or whatever, then you want to pick, okay, 10 minutes. I need this to happen quickly. So this, thinking about it as an urgency, I think that's a pretty good way to put it, and we can design some options there.
Oh wow!
If I could add one, is that for this type of client software, I think making this nice and easy to understand and really accessible within the send is important, because other applications, they can ping like a nice service that has a really good estimation. But here we are doing our own estimation based on the mempool, but also on the previous blocks that came in. And so we are trying our best to get a good estimation, but it could be wrong. And other Bitcoin client software that can ping servers, and they're doing their own estimation, and it could be better estimation. That might not be so critical, but within here, especially if we don't want to have our users foot gun themselves, they might want to increase that fee. And so I think it'd be important to think about what kind of information we want there. Like, do we want some kind of histogram? It might be important to really think about, because right now, I think it doesn't give you good insight into what you should do. Like, should I increase it? What information might I want to look at to increase? Now, me personally, I just go to mempool.space and I look at what does it say for like the next block if I wanted to. But within the software, we can't do that, right? And so I think that's an important thing to think. How do we really make this useful? Because it's an important thing.
There you go.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Hello. I was thinking about what you said, that we are our prediction algorithm might get the fees wrong, and that's why we are not able to properly predict, and transaction is not completed. So like we can, like, by doing manual selection of fees, we can look into mempool space or points, other things. But I don't think it would be very practical for a general user, because you don't want to look through mempool space again and again to initiate a transaction before it. So first of all, I want to ask, how good is our prediction algorithm currently doing? Means,
Well, no, I'm not suggesting that a user go look at mempool.space before creating a transaction here. I'm saying that we should think about what kind of information we want to present within the constraints of our estimation algorithm to have a user make the best choice, because it's a unique thing with this type of client software where we can't ping other people. We do our own thing.
We don't want to ping other people, right?
Yeah. The estimation algorithm is pretty good. Now, the thing is that it's your node alone doing this fee estimation, and other services will have different nodes that might have a slightly better view, and they have interesting algorithms or whatever to generate it. But ours is pretty good. Um, it's just that, for example, there's things that could happen, like somebody could send a ton of transactions to you to make you think fees are going up really high, and that might not be a concern with other estimation algorithms. But it's just that it's an okay estimation, right? There could be improvements, but it's limited because it's just one node. It's your node. You're not aggregating from different nodes that have different views.
So Harold, can we add a confidence measurement in our predicted fees, predicted average or recommended fees? Like you said that if a node is getting a huge number of transaction in a given time, so we can say it might be a possible attack that because of many transaction, the the fees the fee prediction of this particular node get disturbed, so that we could point an exclamation mark or some other things, so that to point to the user that the predict the pred, the prediction could be wrong in this case because of abnormal behaviors. So can we do something like that?
Well, it's not necessarily abnormal behavior because, for example, like recently Binance dropped like 73 blocks worth of transactions in one moment. And so these things happen, and the estimation algorithm might not adjust right away, right? And so it's just there's going to be instances where if it's really critical for you to get it within the next block, we want to provide the best amount of information so that the user can choose the best fee, because we might not automatically always choose the best fee, and that's just going to happen. So just present information like what Christoph was showing with that histogram was exactly what I was thinking. And so if it's critical, show the best information, have it be really usable, and then we never or we try to never foot gun users and have them be that where it's like, well, now my transaction is going to be waiting for a month, and they
Yeah.
didn't have replaced by fee.
But replaced
Yeah.
by fees enabled by default, right? So you can kind of beef it up a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
Word here.
I guess we can keep the replace by fee option in the developer option, so that user who don't know the consequences of disabling this feature might play with it and get foot gun himself. And also one more thing, like is there a reliable way to manually predict that how much fee should I pay so that my transaction get completed quickly? Like you mentioned mempool space, so is there another way, or is this the way to manually properly predict?
Well, no, mempool.space is just an example of a service that normally has a good estimation for the fee to get into the block. But is there a manual way? The manual way is to look at the mempool and see paying transactions, and then you'd want to adopt a fee of those high paying transactions.
All right, so maybe we can add a I option, something like I option on an information option, with the recommended fees. That if the transaction is a critical one and you want to complete this quickly, you can look into the mempool yourself, and we can provide a kind of rough guidance on how to do so properly. So first of all, it will educate the user, so that he could better himself in how to properly deal with Bitcoin and Bitcoin in general. And also we can properly convey the information that this prediction algorithm might not be accurate 100% of the time.
I don't know if we want to have users manually go through the mempool, but we can provide a histogram with like these are the distributions of the fees right now. And so maybe if you want to be in the next block, you take at the high end of the distribution.
Oh, okay. Means we can provide some kind of information in the app itself, right? Like a histogram and stuff, so that they could
Yeah.
understand how much. Okay, got it.
Just one last question, because I do see we reached the time. What would the user click on the initial receive screen what would the user click on the send screen to arrive at this screen state, which we're now on?
So it's where the screen state where you could transaction fee, it would be Christoph, if you go to your screenshot, there, and then you
So
can
here,
click
choose. Right?
Choose. Okay.
And then the other thing, though, is there's also coin control. And I think that's, where do you enable that? Is that in settings somewhere?
Yeah, you have to enable it within setting wallet, and then it'll be another state where on top you'll have some coin control features.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that can get really complex, this whole screen, and it's going to be a bunch of stuff. So, but basically, then you press send, then you get this confirmation here where you get the quick summary, and the number here is in red, probably because it's a high or a low fee, and it might be problematic, right?
The red, no, it's red because I don't. It's just people chose it to be red. I don't think it has anything to do with the fee. It's just they made it red.
Okay, cool. We can figure that out. And then everyone know how coin selection works?
No.
This is a feature for really, really power users. Because we have really good coin selection algorithms. You never have to do this manually. But it's just, if you wanted to do it manually, we allow you to.
Yeah.
Sorry, what would you click to arrive at the coin selection screen?
You would enable it with the setting. And then I sent a new round of screenshots. Okay, so Christoph has it there.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Inputs, yeah. And it's relevant if if for whatever privacy reasons you don't want to mix your certain coins. You don't want certain people to get certain coins, and then they can kind of trace it back to, I don't know, some other entity. Let's say, I don't know, you have some Russian oligarch friends, and they're on the blacklist. You don't want to send those to pay your taxes at the IRS or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It allows you to, and you really have to know what you're doing there. So there's that side for privacy, but I think there's also a fee, because the more inputs you put in, the more size, the more kilobytes your transaction has, and then the more expensive it actually gets. So let's say you really want to send something super urgent, maybe you would just want to have the least amount of inputs, because then your fees will be a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So would you suggest putting this coin selection in with the developer option or with the power user?
I guess developer and power user are similar, right?
Yeah.
So I would not consider this a developer tool. It is something that advanced or sophisticated users with very specific needs may want to do. It's not something that helps you in development, that is specifically done for development, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I guess we should keep doing this, but I'll try to do some heavy lifting, going by how you guys wrote in these notes. I'll try to do some heavy lifting, maybe on an issue, kind of filling in more information as well, so that we can maybe try to get through this faster, because I feel like this will take a really long time to get it, but it's important to do. And
I actually think it's, I don't know how about you feel. I feel like it's good to talk through this. Because then it really sinks into everybody's head, and we're on the same page a little bit.
It's like all the explanations from Christoph and from Gerald are really helping me to understand certain aspects of the GUI, which I wouldn't otherwise understand. And I guess since I'm the one that's the most basic in terms of, I don't understand what that means. I was like HD, high definition. The questions that I asked, I guess, will make you guys think like, yeah, what does that actually mean? So I like this conversation. It's really nice.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, I'll try to write in notes, but of course, we'll still talk about it. It's just maybe it. Um, and yeah, we'll keep doing this. I guess tomorrow we do have some things with the QML to discuss. One would be the onboarding views again, and I'm going to finish the review on that today. But also, we have some discussion going on with the peer indicator, and we have a discussion with the that component with like the current network, and and so and so we have some topics there. But if it's important, we could just continue this if you guys want.
And I had an idea as well because, like, we're making all of these sticky notes. So you have send screen, send screen. We can eventually pool all the sticky notes together from all of the send screens and really look at the sticky notes and, like, form some conclusions from those. That might also help if we've gone through most of the screens as well.
I don't know how you feel about the whole thing, but I think we could use part of the call tomorrow to just continue